At my 21st birthday, my uncle toasted, "To the adult now legally responsible for her own bad decisions." I raised my glass back. Agreed. Speaking of bad decisions, thanks for the reminder that my trust fund will no longer cover your loan repayments starting tomorrow. At last, Uncle Graham announced, raising his champagne glass, "A toast to Lincoln, the adult now legally responsible for his own bad decisions." Everyone around the table laughed. We were celebrating my 21st birthday in the private dining room of the most expensive restaurant in town. My parents had invited nearly every member of the Bennett family: grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and several dentists who had worked with us for so long that they were practically relatives. Behind Uncle Graham hung a framed photograph of my great-grandfather Arthur, standing outside the first Bennett Dental Clinic in 1952. 4 generations of dentists. That was how my family introduced us. My great-grandfather had opened the first practice. My grandfather expanded it. My father and Uncle Graham now controlled 6 clinics. And I, Lincoln Bennett, was studying to become the 4th generation. At least, that was the plan everyone had made for me. Uncle Graham grinned at me from across the table, expecting me to laugh along with the others. He had always enjoyed making jokes at my expense, especially when there was an audience. I slowly raised my own glass. "Agreed," I said. His smile widened. "Speaking of bad decisions, thanks for reminding me that my trust fund will no longer cover your loan repayments starting tomorrow." The laughter stopped, not gradually, instantly. Uncle Graham's glass remained suspended near his mouth. My mother turned toward me so quickly that one of her earrings brushed her cheek. "Lincoln," she whispered. My father's face hardened. Uncle Graham lowered his glass. "What did you just say?" "I said the payments stop tomorrow." I heard that part. His voice had lost its playful tone. "What payments?" "The monthly payments being taken from my trust fund and transferred to the bank holding your failed clinic loan." My grandmother slowly placed her fork on her plate. My father leaned closer to me. "This is neither the time nor the place." "Actually, Dad, this is the perfect place. Everyone who keeps telling me that family supports family is sitting at the same table." My mother grabbed my wrist beneath the table. "You're embarrassing us." I looked down at her hand.
Let go.
She stared at me in disbelief, but she released me. Uncle Graham gave a short laugh. "You've clearly misunderstood some paperwork." I understood it well enough to hire a lawyer. My father pushed his chair back. "You did what?" I reached beneath my chair and lifted a dark folder onto the table. Inside were bank statements, transfer authorizations, copies of loan documents, and a letter freezing all future payments from my trust. Uncle Graham stared at the folder as if it were a loaded weapon. My 21st birthday was supposed to mark the beginning of my adult life. Instead, it became the night I finally stopped paying for my family's lies. The Bennett family did not think of dentistry as a career. It was an inheritance. When I was 7, my father gave me a model of a human jaw instead of a toy truck. When I was 10, I spent Saturdays in his clinic learning the names of instruments. At 13, I could identify every adult tooth and explain the difference between a filling and a crown. Whenever adults asked what I wanted to become, my father answered for me. "Lincoln will be the 4th generation." Everyone always smiled. No one ever asked whether I wanted that life. The truth was, I liked dentistry. I liked working with my hands. I liked the precision and the idea of taking away someone's pain. What I hated was being treated like a position in the family business instead of a person. My university had been chosen for me. My courses had been planned for me. Uncle Graham had already decided which Bennett clinic I would join after dental school. "You'll start under me," he often said. "I'll teach you the business side." That usually meant teaching me how to smile while charging wealthy patients for procedures they did not urgently need. My great-grandfather had created a trust fund for every future Bennett who studied medicine or dentistry. The money was supposed to cover tuition, housing, textbooks, and eventually the cost of opening a practice. My father managed my trust. Whenever I asked questions, he gave me the same answer. "You're fortunate, Lincoln. Most students graduate with enormous debt." He was right. I was fortunate, and I felt guilty whenever I complained. That guilt kept me obedient. At 20, I lived in a small apartment near campus. I bought used textbooks, worked weekends sterilizing instruments at one of our family clinics, and survived on cheap meals because my father said the trust should not encourage luxury. Discipline builds character, he told me after refusing an extra $300 for groceries and transportation. I believed him. Then my roommate Ethan saw one of my trust statements. He was applying for financial aid and had asked me to help organize his documents. While we were comparing tuition costs, he pointed to a transaction on my laptop. What's BDC Strategic Recovery? Every month, $4,850 left my trust and went to an account with that name. I'm not sure, I said. Probably a family business investment. Do you own part of the business? Not yet. Then why is your education fund paying for it? The question stayed with me. That weekend I asked my father. We were in his office after the clinic closed. He was reviewing patient files while I cleaned equipment. What's the strategic recovery payment? He did not look up. A temporary family arrangement. Why is it coming from my trust? Your uncle needed assistance with the Northbrook Clinic. The Northbrook Clinic had been Uncle Graham's dream project. Luxury chairs imported from Italy, marble floors, private recovery rooms, and a refreshment bar that served champagne to cosmetic patients. It had closed after 18 months. How much assistance? I asked. My father sighed. Lincoln, focus on your studies. I'm asking about my money. His eyes lifted sharply. It is family money. It's in my trust. And who created that trust? Great-Grandpa Arthur. For the benefit of the Bennett family. I thought it was for my education. It is, but protecting the business protects your future. Is Uncle Graham repaying it? My father's expression changed. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. He will repay everything once his finances stabilize. Is there a contract? You're behaving like a suspicious child. I'm asking a normal question. You are 20 years old. You have never run a clinic, employed staff, negotiated with banks, or carried the Bennett name through a financial crisis. Let the adults handle this. I said nothing else, but that night I stopped letting the adults handle it. I downloaded every statement available through the trust portal. The payments had started when I was 17. At first, they were $2,000 a month. Then they increased to $3,300. Eventually, they reached $4,850. There were also emergency withdrawals labeled business preservation, legal stabilization, and temporary capital support. The total made my stomach turn. More than $280,000 had been removed from my trust. I searched through old emails and discovered several documents my father had sent me for electronic signature. At the time, he had described them as routine educational forms. One of them authorized the trust to act as a secondary source of payment for Uncle Graham's business loan. My signature was at the bottom. I had signed it 3 days after turning 18. I remembered that day. I had been studying for a chemistry exam when Dad called and told me to sign several documents immediately. Nothing important, he had said, just administrative updates. I trusted him. The worst discovery came from an email written by the family accountant. The accountant had warned my father that using my trust to cover Graham's personal guarantee could violate his responsibilities as trustee. My father's reply was one sentence. Lincoln understands that family obligations come before personal preference. I stared at those words for a long time. No one had explained the arrangement to me. No one had asked me. They had simply decided that I understood. While my trust paid Graham's debt, he renovated his lake house. He leased a new Mercedes for himself and another for Aunt Rebecca. He bought a vintage Porsche and posted photographs of it online with the caption, "Hard work deserves rewards." Meanwhile, I had been skipping meals because my father said I needed financial discipline. For several days, I felt more ashamed than angry. How could I have been so blind? Then Ethan said something that changed my perspective. You weren't stupid, Lincoln. You trusted your father. He was the one who used that trust against you. I contacted an attorney. Her name was Melissa Grant, and she specialized in trusts and financial misconduct. I brought her every document I had found. She read silently for almost an hour. Finally, she looked at me. Your father appears to have used your trust for the benefit of someone who is not a beneficiary. Is that illegal? It may be a serious breach of his duty as trustee. My mouth went dry. He said protecting the family company protected my future. Do you currently own shares in the company? No. Did your trust receive ownership in exchange for the payments? No. Is there a repayment contract with your uncle? Not that I can find. Then your trust received no clear benefit. She explained that when I turned 21, I would become co-trustee. Future payments would require my approval. I could freeze the transfers and demand a complete accounting. Your family will pressure you, she warned. They already do. They may call you selfish, ungrateful, or disloyal. They already do that too. She almost smiled. Then legally, tomorrow may be easier than emotionally. We prepared the documents. My plan was to give them privately to my father the morning after my birthday. Then Uncle Graham made his toast. What exactly are you accusing me of? Graham asked across the birthday table. I'm not accusing you. The bank statements are doing that. My father stood. This conversation is over. No, it's beginning. Sit down, Lincoln. I am sitting. A cousin coughed to hide a laugh. My father glared at him before turning back to me. You do not understand how complicated this situation is. Then explain why my trust paid more than $280,000 toward Graham's debt. It was temporary. 4 years is temporary? Uncle Graham leaned forward. That money protected the company you expect to join. The Northbrook Clinic belonged to you. It carried the Bennett name. It also carried a champagne bar and $1 million loan. His face reddened. You arrogant little brat. My grandmother held out her hand. Give me the documents, Lincoln. My father immediately intervened. Mother, there is no reason to involve you. I am already involved. Arthur created that trust. I passed the folder to her. She adjusted her glasses and examined the first page. Her expression changed as she read. These payments came from Lincoln's trust? My father hesitated. They came from an account connected to the family. That is not what I asked. Yes. She looked at Uncle Graham. You told me the company had covered your loan. It effectively did. No, I said. My trust covered part of it. My mother pressed her napkin against the table. Lincoln, you've made your point. Apologize and we can discuss this tomorrow. Apologize for discovering it? For humiliating your family. They weren't worried about humiliation when they took the money. We did not take anything, she snapped. Everything you have exists because of this family. The trust exists because great-grandpa wanted my education protected. And you are receiving an education. While paying Graham's debts. Uncle Graham stood. You have no idea what I sacrificed for Bennett Dental. I looked at him. Was it the lake house? Aunt Rebecca turned toward him. What does the lake house have to do with this? Nothing, Graham said quickly. The trust paid his loan while he spent nearly $80,000 renovating it. Aunt Rebecca's face went pale. Graham pointed a finger at me. You went through my finances? No, I went through mine. You were all over them. My grandmother continued reading. David, did Lincoln receive any ownership in exchange for these payments? My father looked uncomfortable. It was understood that he would eventually join the company. That was not my question. No. Was Graham required to pay interest? No formal interest. Was there a repayment schedule? We intended to create one later. Grandmother removed her glasses. Arthur created these trusts because his own father lost the family savings covering his brother's gambling debts. No one spoke. He wanted the younger generation protected from the mistakes of the older one, she continued. And you used Lincoln's fund to protect Graham from his mistakes. Uncle Graham's jaw tightened. I refuse to be judged by a child who has never worked for anything. That finally broke something inside me. I worked every weekend at your clinics and got paid. Less than every other assistant. You were learning. I studied all week, cleaned your instruments on Saturdays, and ate noodles because Dad said the trust could not cover more groceries. Meanwhile, nearly $5,000 a month was paying your loan. You would have wasted the money. It was not yours to decide. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You're tearing this family apart over money. I looked directly at her. No. You used family loyalty to hide what you were doing. I'm tearing away the excuse. I removed 3 envelopes from the folder. One is a formal notice suspending all payments starting tomorrow morning. One demands a full independent accounting. The third requires repayment of every unauthorized withdrawal, including interest. Uncle Graham laughed, but there was panic behind it. You think you can threaten me? My attorney thinks I can. My father stared at me. You hired a lawyer against your own family? I hired one to protect myself from my own family. My mother began crying. For years, that would have stopped me. Her tears had always meant I had gone too far, even when I was the one being hurt. This time I stayed seated. Uncle Graham came around the table and stopped beside me. You think turning 21 gives you power? You are a student. You have no practice, no reputation, and no career. Everything you have comes from the Bennett name. I stood so we were facing each other. Then surviving without my money should be easy. His face twisted. You'll regret this. Send that in writing. My lawyer will appreciate it. My grandmother closed the folder. Graham, leave. He turned toward her. You cannot be serious. I have never been more serious. Aunt Rebecca picked up her purse without looking at her husband. As Graham walked away, he paused beside the door. This family will remember who caused this. I hope they do, I said. The door slammed behind him. No one touched the birthday cake. At 8 the next morning, I signed the suspension order. By 8:15, Uncle Graham had called 6 times. My father called 4 times. My mother sent a message telling me that it was not too late to correct my mistake. I forwarded everything to my attorney and answered no one. For the first time in 4 years, Graham's loan payment was not taken from my trust. Within a week, he missed the full payment. That was when the relatives began contacting me. One cousin said I was punishing the entire family. An aunt told me that money inherited from relatives should always remain available to relatives. My mother said Graham might lose his lake house. I replied, then he can sell it. She called me cruel. I reminded her that I had been expected to limit food and transportation while Graham owned 3 cars. She stopped responding. The independent accounting took 3 months. The final total was worse than expected. My trust had paid $341,600 for Graham's debts, legal expenses, travel, and consulting fees. Some of the money had gone to a company owned by Graham himself. My father had authorized almost every transfer. We met in my lawyer's office. Dad brought his own attorney. He looked exhausted, but I did not feel sorry enough to change my mind. I believed I was protecting the family business, he said. You were protecting Graham. He is my brother. I'm your son. He looked away. I continued. You taught me that responsible people sacrifice for irresponsible ones. You spent your whole life cleaning up after Graham, and then you trained me to do the same. His face tightened. You don't understand the pressure I was under. I understand it perfectly. You were afraid to tell Graham no, so you took money from someone who trusted you. His attorney suggested a settlement. Graham would refinance the lake house, sell the Porsche, and surrender part of his ownership in Bennett Dental until the trust was fully repaid. My father would also contribute money from his personal investments. In return, I would not sue either of them publicly. There was one additional condition. My father had to resign as trustee. You're removing me? He asked. Yes. I'm your father. That is why the betrayal mattered. He signed. Graham sold the Porsche first, then the lake house went on the market. He blamed me for everything. He never mentioned that he had spent my money for 4 years. The family avoided me after the settlement. I was removed from group chats, invitations stopped. Relatives who had once praised me as the future of Bennett Dental suddenly described me as greedy and unstable. It hurt. Setting boundaries did not erase my need to belong. Some evenings I missed family dinners so badly that I almost called my mother and apologized just to make the silence end. But every time I considered it, I opened the accounting report. The numbers reminded me of the truth. They did not miss Lincoln. They missed access. I left my weekend job at Bennett Dental and began volunteering at a community clinic near my university. No one there cared about my surname. They cared whether I arrived on time, treated patients kindly, and remembered where the sterile instruments belonged. One afternoon, a frightened 7-year-old girl refused to open her mouth for an examination. I sat beside her and explained every instrument. "You can raise your hand whenever you need us to stop," I told her. "Will you really stop?" "I promise." She raised her hand 3 times. We stopped 3 times. Afterward, she gave me a small star sticker from the clinic's prize box. "For being nice," she said. I kept that sticker in my wallet. That day, I realized I still wanted to become a dentist. Not because I was a Bennett, not because 4 generations expected it, because I was good at helping frightened people feel less powerless. I decided to specialize in pediatric dentistry and apply to dental schools outside our state. For the first time, my career felt like a choice instead of a sentence. My grandmother supported me. She invited me to lunch 6 months after the settlement and handed me my great-grandfather's gold watch. On the back were 3 engraved words: "Steady hands, clear conscience." "Arthur would have been proud of you," she said, "for fighting the family, for refusing to confuse loyalty with surrender." My father came to visit me almost a year after my birthday. He stood outside my apartment in the rain, holding no umbrella. I let him inside. For several minutes he said nothing. Then he looked at me and spoke quietly. "I'm sorry." It was the first real apology I had ever heard from him. "I used your trust," he continued. "I lied to you, and I made you feel immature whenever you asked reasonable questions. I told myself I was protecting everyone, but I was protecting Graham from consequences." I listened without rescuing him from the discomfort. "I don't expect you to forgive me immediately," he said. "I believe your apology." Relief crossed his face. "But things cannot return to the way they were." He nodded. "I understand." "You will not control my finances." "I understand." "You will not choose where I study or work." He hesitated, then nodded again. "And I won't automatically join Bennett Dental." That one hurt him. I could see it. But he said, "You should build the career you want." It was not a perfect reconciliation, but it was honest. That was enough for a beginning. 2 years later, I entered dental school 3 states away. On the first day, one professor asked why each of us had chosen dentistry. When my turn came, I could have talked about the Bennett legacy. Instead, I said, "Because pain makes people feel powerless, and I want to help give them control again." That answer belonged only to me. Uncle Graham eventually repaid every dollar, including interest and legal costs. After the final payment cleared, he sent me one message: "I hope the money was worth destroying this family." I replied, "The money showed me that you believed being family gave you the right to use me. Ending that belief was worth it." Then I blocked his number. My mother and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. She resisted my boundaries at first, but eventually she learned that I would leave any conversation involving guilt, money, or demands disguised as family duty. My father stopped asking me to join Bennett Dental. Instead, he occasionally called to ask about my classes. He listened to the answers. That mattered more than I expected. On my 21st birthday, Uncle Graham had raised his glass and mocked me as the adult finally responsible for my own bad decisions. He had been right in a way he never intended. That night, I became responsible for choosing what I would tolerate. I chose not to finance someone else's entitlement. I chose not to mistake obedience for love. I chose not to let my surname become a chain around my future. Someday, I plan to open my own pediatric dental clinic. There will be no marble floors, champagne bar, or photographs of relatives watching from every wall. There will be bright rooms, patient staff, and a rule that every frightened child can raise a hand and ask us to stop. My great-grandfather's watch will hang in my office: "Steady hands, clear conscience." And beneath it, I will place a second reminder, one I learned at a birthday dinner my family would rather forget: A gift is not a debt, a family name is not ownership, and becoming an adult does not mean paying for everyone's bad decisions. Sometimes it means finally refusing to.